Hey guys, in this week's Casually Criterion episode, we're going to review Before Sunset. But before we do that, we're going to talk about Raya and the Last Dragon, the Star Wars Special Edition on Disney Plus, and The Way, Way Back. So, get ready.
Powered by Cinelinx. My name is Justin, and with me, as always, is a man who is going to sing us a waltz. Mike, how you doing?
Good. That actually will require a donation. So if you want to hear my waltz, you have to first send us money, and then you'll get a special episode. I'll make sure of it. So
yeah, and you also do your poem from last week that I also put you on the spot for having to come up with a poem too.
Oh yeah, that's right. All of these things that I never actually do but get asked on the show at the beginning can always be found if you send us money.
That's right. I really hope that something happens before midnight that I can give you a task to do again.
Yep. And then hopefully really someone will send us money to hear that thing.
Yeah. We'll really round out this trilogy of episodes.
Yeah. All right. If this is your first time listening, this is a Casually Criterion episode, which is a Criterion collection-focused show that we like to do every other week where we review a film from the Criterion collection that is picked by the listeners. Before we get into the main review, we'll be doing our usual News on the March, where we talk about recent news and things that we have been watching. So if you haven't seen the movie, you can still listen, and then we'll go ahead and move into the full Casually Criterion review for Before Sunset, spine number 858.
That's right, and as Mike said, the Criterion films we do are picked by the listeners, so follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Casual Cinecast. We put the polls for the Criterion shows out on our Twitter, so that's the best place to follow us. You can also message us on any of those platforms or send any emails to casualcinemedia@gmail.com. You know, if you have a question about a movie we're reviewing, or you just want to ask us something or get us to talk about a movie that you love, whatever, we're open to any messages, I think.
Yeah, please, any and all. So without further ado, I say we get into News on the March. What do you say?
Let's march there.
Do it.
News on the March!
All right, Justin. So, what have you been up to this week?
Well, I haven't watched a lot of new things that we didn't talk about last week. You know, still watching New Girl, still watching The History of Comedy. But what I did watch this last weekend is that I got my wife to finally agree to watch the original Star Wars trilogy, and we started with the first Star Wars movie. We haven't watched the rest of the trilogy yet, so this is just about Star Wars, or A New Hope, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind. I don't have anything against that.
It's been that since like 83 or something like that?
It's been that as long as I've known it, but I know that sometimes I've called it A New Hope, and some people are like, well, it's just Star Wars, sir.
Yeah. Well,
you know,
it's been A New Hope longer than it was ever Star Wars.
That's true. So who's right, who's wrong? Probably nobody, because
probably doesn't
call
matter
it what you want. But what I did want to talk about, and just something that I noticed, and I think this stems from like, you know, I my love of Star Wars being developed on like the VHS tapes of like the original versions. Like I never had the special edition VHS movies, and I don't know how many times I've ever watched this film on like DVD special edition or Blu-ray or anything. So I feel like this is my first time to sit down and watch this thing, you know, all the way through. And I don't know if I just missed it before, but like I was kind of appalled at sections where they added in like CG stuff for the special edition. And that's kind of all I really wanted to like talk about in regards to this movie, unless you want to hit on other things. But like, I don't know.
No, I just feel like you're like 20 years too late for this observation. The special editions have been controversial for quite a while, I guess.
No, I know they haven't. I guess I've just never seen it because I've always felt like, oh, what's the big deal? Like, you know, he added in some stuff, and you know, how bad could it be, right?
Yeah.
Of course, I've seen like the Return of the Jedi scene where there's like a whole song and dance number in Jabba's palace.
Yeah,
and
but
that's
this
kind
is your
of like
first go around with A New Hope in a while, then I guess.
I think so, and it's just like, I don't know. It was just one of those weird things that like it's this thing that I treasure and I love, and we've talked about on the show so many times, different Star Wars things. We've had like full like Star Wars dedicated episodes. I think we did a whole episode instead of reviewing a movie, we just reviewed like the Rise of the Skywalker trailer.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know, I guess I have them in my head as like being pristine and perfect, and I watched it again, and I don't want, like, I don't love it any less, but just watching it with those things, it just struck me like it couldn't help, or just like punched me in the face of like how bad some of this stuff was. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know. Is there any way to like get those non-special editions?
No, those are the canon editions. Those are the editions that George Lucas submitted to Disney Plus. Like a few years back, he was planning on re-releasing the entire saga in 3D in theaters, right?
Yeah.
So these are actually...
I saw Phantom Menace in that then when they did the 3D.
Oh yeah. I remember you talked about that. But then like I don't know what happened. I guess that's around the time that he was planning to sell to Disney.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what happened, but he didn't end up releasing anything past the Phantom Menace in theaters around that time. And so these editions, the versions of the prequels and the original trilogy on Disney Plus right now are the most recent versions that George Lucas considers to be like canon, right?
Yeah.
And so I agree with you on a lot of what you're saying. I think most people probably do. The people at least who saw the original trilogy first.
Yeah.
Like before the special editions. I will say there are some things that like I think are actually good additions. Like there's a shot of like the X-Wings in space that I think looks better than something they could have done in 77.
Yeah.
They make the UI and like the X-Wings look a little better, and like the black's a little better, and maybe some of the lasers a little better. Mm-hmm. Sound effects, things like that are really subtle changes that you wouldn't notice that I think are better in the special editions that help keep it a little more modern feeling. But I agree with you. There are certain things that are like, what the heck? Like the thing that comes to mind that has never looked good in any iteration of the special editions was the Jabba in A New Hope scene.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That's the most egregious thing I can think of in the first movie. I really do not like Han Solo walking around Jabba, stepping over his tail.
Yeah, that's exceptionally bad. That's probably
it looks
the
bad.
Worst.
It makes Jabba out to be kind of a little bitch,
Yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, Boba Fett's there, it just it's a weird scene, man. I don't know. It just seems kind of pointless. And I don't like it. It kind of takes away some of the impending doom of Jabba,
Yeah.
But I don't know. Beyond that, I can't think of much in A New Hope that really bothers me. Did you recall the McClunky scene being new?
McClunky?
Yeah. So when Han and Greedo are going to shoot each other in the bar,
Yeah.
In the version on Disney Plus, which is like a new edition in the most modern version, has never been there since the 70s. Greedo pulls out a blaster right before he shoots Han, or starts to take a shot at Han, and says, "McClunky."
Oh no.
Yeah, it's weird.
No, that is weird. I mean, I definitely, this is my first time really noticing the like Han Solo like shifting out of the way really awkwardly and weird of the shot, but I don't know.
Yep. That's the whole Han shot first controversy, that has been going around for years.
Yeah, that one's old, but I feel like this is my first time to see it, like knowing of it,
Yeah.
But obviously, as you said, we're not breaking new ground here talking about this, but what was just weird about it is to have one of those things that like you have built up a certain way in your head and you haven't watched in a long time, and then you watch it again and you're like, oh, maybe this isn't the perfect perfect movie that I thought it was, or maybe it was at one point, and it's been kind of bastardized in some ways. But
here's what I'll say before we close up the Star Wars talk. I have been living with the special editions of the Star Wars original trilogy longer than I was with the originals. Like I watched the originals on VHS, the original trilogy, like that was on VHS. I saw the special editions in theaters. And then I bought the special editions, on VHS and DVD and all the, everything in between. So, and at this point in time, the special editions have existed longer than the original versions ever did,
True.
So, and also simultaneously throughout its various theatrical releases over the years before VHS, the original trilogy actually underwent several changes. They just didn't get new versions, you know? So, like, I don't know if we've ever seen, technically, the original 1977 cut, you know?
That's true. Yeah.
George Lucas has always been one to like, go back and tweak, so who the heck knows? But at this point in time, I would say if you like Star Wars and you like the overall story, and you want to watch, like, the prequels, the original trilogy, the sequels, and, you know, all that stuff and make it match, the special editions do fit better with, like, the prequels visually. For better or worse, I think.
Yeah, it'll be interesting as I go through. I guess it's just as so much more than I remember, and so much, so much of it. Like
I would say, Return of the Jedi is the worst for the special editions, in my opinion.
Yeah, well,
but also the best because some of the stuff they added at the end is actually pretty rad. So I don't know. It's give and take, I think.
Yeah, it is. But we can move on from that. I just wanted to call out just a weird feeling of having one of my childhood memories just feel awkward when I tried to revisit it. I think we've all been there.
Yeah, totally.
But moving on, another thing that I watched that was a film I'd seen before, and I revisited it because my wife wanted to watch it. She's very much into the like indie comedy sort of film, and so this one's been on our list for a while. But it's a film starring Steve Carell and Sam Rockwell. And it's called The Way, Way Back. Also, Toni Collette. Don't want to shortchange her. She's good in this.
Yeah, I actually saw this in theaters way back. Way back.
Yeah, I didn't. I saw it when it came out. Actually, it was like a friend recommended it to me and was like, oh, this is really good. And I think I bought it really cheaply at like a used movie store back when those existed. And just watched it. And I was like, okay, well, that was like pretty good. And I held on to the Blu-ray forever.
Yeah.
And I still have it. So it was like, oh, okay, well, let's watch that. And, I like this movie a lot more this time. And one of the most interesting things that I've found about the movie, interesting in a way that I'm not quite sure how I feel about it, but I don't know if you recall this, but Steve Carell is the stepdad in the movie, which basically the movie's about a kid and his mom with a new boyfriend. I guess they're technically not married yet, but like the stepdad figure going off to his like summer beach house to spend the summer. And Steve Carell is
I didn't remember that. Actually, I had forgotten Steve Carell and Toni Collette were in it. All I remembered was Sam Rockwell.
Well, he's the best part. Like he's really charming and fun and funny, and is like the kind of good guiding father figure sort of throughout the movie. Right. To the main character, the kid. But Steve Carell's kind of like, he's like the sort of like dickish, rude, mean stepdad type figure. Yeah. Which is really bizarre and is like really off-putting to watch him do that. And I don't know. I just find it this like really bold choice, and I can't decide like if that is one of my barriers to the movie, that it just feels so weird and uncomfortable to watch him do that, or if it's like this genius inspired choice of casting to make me uncomfortable.
Well, it's all kind of coming back to me now that you're talking about it. The whole plot with the beach house and the family and the tension. I kind of seem to remember Steve Carell being kind of right at home in a character like that. He seems kind of like a smarmy like jerk. I feel like he used to play something like that before he hit it big.
Maybe. I guess he was like kind of the guy that was against Jim Carrey and Bruce Almighty.
Oh yeah.
And who got his comeuppance after being kind of a jerk to Jim Carrey.
Yeah, that's right.
So I guess that's right. But I guess I'm just like this character does things that like Michael Scott would do, but with like intentionally being mean about it. As opposed to just being
oblivious, like Michael Scott.
Oblivious and aloof. Yeah. So I don't know. It's this weird watch, and like my wife, she like loved the movie, and like I said, when I watched it, I was like, yeah, that's okay, and I just never got rid of the Blu-ray, and I don't know. I like so much about the movie. Sam Rockwell's great in it. Toni Collette's
what made you want to
really
pop
good.
it back in again?
Well, I guess we were just going through like indie comedy movies, and that was one that I had that we didn't have to like find on a streaming service or like pay to rent.
Sometimes a good looking Blu-ray is better than anything you could stream anyway.
That's true. Yeah, and sometimes when you're trying to find something on streaming, you end up scrolling through forever and never watching anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but I don't know. I think I would recommend this movie. I think it's a lot of fun. It's written by Jim Rash, and I can't remember the other writer's name, but Jim Rash is the one that I know. Who plays the Dean in Community.
Oh yeah.
And
I know Jim
he
Rash.
also wrote The Descendants.
Yeah, talented guy.
Yeah, which is a great movie. This one's not quite that good. It's a little sillier, but
it kind of goes to show you like tone and director make up a lot of stuff, because Alexander Payne did The Descendants, and I wonder if Alexander Payne had done this movie, what it would look like.
It would be weirder, I'm sure, than this movie. This movie's a little bit
dry.
Straightforward. Yeah. But I think if you like indie comedies or you like coming of age tales, this movie is pretty fun for anyone who hadn't seen it. I think it's, it wasn't super well or super critically acclaimed when it came out. So, I think maybe there's some people who haven't heard of it, and I'd recommend it. If nothing else, for Sam Rockwell's charm and Steve Carell's uncomfortable, jerk stepdad type character.
Yeah, I also recommend it from what I remember. Yeah, it's a solid movie.
Cool. But that's it, like I said, so I will pass it off to you.
Yeah, okay. So this week I have not really been watching a whole lot of anything, except my girlfriend and I watched the newest Disney film that just recently came out, Raya and the Last Dragon, which is like the new Disney animated thing that you can find on Disney Plus right now. It's kind of expensive, and here's the thing. I don't know that it's worth it. So that's... Yeah, but it's not a bad movie at all. Like, it's a good movie. I think kind of refreshingly, there's no songs. As someone who goes to Disney animated movies and generally likes them, I haven't really been a big fan of like Disney movie songs, except for like Moana, in quite a while. I find them kind of slow and, I don't know, kind of full of themselves, self-important. I don't know, but whatever. Like, this movie is kind of dry of any of that, and it's really nice. It takes place in like a fictional version of China, and it stars Kelly Marie Tran from the Star Wars sequel trilogy, who plays Rose Tico, and then Awkwafina and Benedict Wong and a few other people. But it's a solid cast, and here's what I'll say is a lot of it doesn't reinvent the wheel in any way, shape, or form. It's very, you see where it's coming. Like, I knew what the MacGuffin would be, 5 minutes into it, I knew what the arc would be. There's no surprises here, but it's got a lot of heart and a beautiful world that it's created. But other than that, it's pretty traditional. She's got the little overly cute animal sidekick that both my girlfriend and I felt kind of fell flat for us. She's got like a giant armadillo that she can ride. Like on a weird saddle, and like, I don't know, it's got like a gopher face. I don't know, it's not as cute as I think they wanted it to be, but it's pretty good. I think Awkwafina's character is a little irritating at times, but what are you gonna do?
I could see her in general just kind of riding that line, I think when she's given like funny jokes and funny dialogue, like that personality really like pops, and it's really funny and charming. In this movie, like, I don't know, it's kind of like it's for kids and it's really lowbrow and really simple. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of irritating. This is definitely more kid focused versus, other things like Soul or even like I think Frozen has some like appeal to adults.
Yeah, I would say it's more like Frozen than it is Soul. Sure. But it is no Up, it is no Soul. I know Up is Pixar, but it's more traditional, I would say.
Do you like Frozen? How do you feel about that?
Frozen's okay. That again, I would say that's a movie where like there's one song or maybe 2 or 3 songs that I think should stay, and the rest of them should go.
Yeah,
so
one of those
maybe
let it go.
Be the best judge of character here, because like I find those kinds of musicals to be pretty boring. Like, I like Let It Go, I guess. Because it's so popular and I've heard it so much, but I was bored the first time I heard it in the theater,
Yeah, well, I like Let It Go okay, but this is kind of unrelated, except that it's also Let It Go. But if you're into pop punk, Newfound Glory does an excellent Let It Go cover.
It's good to know.
You're welcome.
Glad they're still doing their thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Raya and the Last Dragon, I would say it's good. Kelly Marie Tran is great. Some of the side characters, maybe there's like one too many side characters here, or maybe it's a little too breezy. It's like an hour and 45 minutes, I think. So, you know, I think they try to do a lot, and it doesn't always work because it feels very rushed.
Yeah, since you said earlier that you feel like maybe it's not worth it, do you think that it might not be worth it even if like you could go to the theater and pay tickets or pay like ticket price to see it, which I guess you can.
Yeah, no, I would go see it in the theater, but I wouldn't pay $30 for it. You know, I mean, I think, hey, if you want to stay home and two people going to the theater would have cost more than $30, then do that, you know? Yeah. But if you can go see this movie for like $10 a ticket, I don't know where you see tickets or what movie theaters are even charging these days.
I don't know. I haven't been to one in a while.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's definitely worth it to see. I wouldn't pay $30 for it. You know, I would say it's mid-tier Disney animation.
Well, bummer. I was kind of looking forward to maybe watching this one and having something kind of easy and fun, you know, to watch. Maybe something like Frozen, you know, that's pretty enjoyable. But
well, I think if you're looking for something like Frozen, you'll be good here. It's like Frozen without the songs. You know, it's just as like sentimental about family, this and that. But maybe a little less about family, but it's good. I liked it more at the end than I thought I would 20 to 30 minutes into it. So I will say that. Like, it gets better the more you stick with it. And I don't know, but for a while, I think the first act is a little clunky. And also, Awkwafina's character is a little annoying.
Noted.
Yeah. But yeah, if you have seen Raya and the Last Dragon, write in, let me know if you think I'm wrong. But that's all I've got, really, for this week. Do you want to go ahead and just move into our main review?
Real quick, I did want to mention this. We were going to record earlier this week, but we got pushed back a couple of days. But closer to our actual planned recording day was International Women's Day. And just in honor of that, I was curious if you wanted to just quickly like list or say like either your favorite like female filmmaker or director or a female directed movie.
Sure. Yeah, I've got one.
I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
yeah, you are. Yeah. I don't know if this is my favorite, but it's someone who has such a unique style and such like a confident hand. And I've liked, I think, everything I've seen. And that's Kelly Reichardt.
Ah, yes.
I think she's great, you know. And, you know, here lately in the past couple years, I've seen so many more female filmmakers popping up. So, you know, I'm sure there's someone like really amazing that I'm not thinking of like, right now, you know. But yeah, what's yours?
Yeah. Well, my favorite, I think, filmmaker would be Sofia Coppola, just in terms of overall work.
Okay.
I'm really drawn to a lot of her stuff. She's got some that don't work as well for me, but on the whole, I like almost everything she's done, and some of it I really love. But if I'm going to go like favorite movie overall, it would be Andrea Arnold's Fish Tank.
Okay.
Which is a Criterion film.
What else has she done?
She did a film called American Honey with Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, it's really long, so I haven't watched it, but I've heard about it.
Same, and I've wanted to because I love Fish Tank so much. And then I believe she directed most of or all of season 2 of Little Big Lies, that show that was on HBO.
Oh, yeah.
Or she might have gotten removed and was planned to direct it and only directed some of it. I can't remember the story exactly. But those are the two other biggest things that she's done other than Fish Tank.
Okay. Huh.
So,
okay,
yeah.
Cool.
But anyways, just wanted to highlight a couple female filmmakers, I thought, in honor of International Women's Day.
Nice. Well, how forward-thinking of you.
Try, I guess.
Yeah. Good job. All right. So now, what do you say we move into our main review for Before Sunset?
Let's go.
All right, here we go.
So listen, here's the deal. This is what we should do. You should get off the train with me here in Vienna and come check out the town.
What?
Come on, it'll be fun. All right. Think of it like this. Jump ahead 10, 20 years, and you're married. And only your marriage doesn't have that same energy that it used to have. You start to think about all those guys you've met in your life and what might have happened if you picked up with one of them.
Let me get my bag.
9 years ago, two strangers met by chance and spent a night in Vienna that ended before sunrise. They are about to meet for the first time since.
Hi.
Hello.
I can't believe you're here.
Well, I live here in Paris.
I wanted to talk to you for so long, you know, that now...
Me too. How long do we have? 20 minutes and 30 seconds?
No,
Let's
we
go.
No, we got more than that.
Now they have one afternoon to find out if they belong together.
I remember that night better than I do entire years.
Do you look any different? I do.
I'd have to see you naked.
Okay, so as always with our Criterion films, we will not be doing a spoiler-free section. These films have been out for a while generally, so we will jump straight into talking about the movie. We may say something spoilery right from the get-go, so if you have not seen Before Sunset, pause the podcast right now, go watch it, and then come back and finish listening to this episode.
All right, the IMDb synopsis for Before Sunset. Oh, actually, hang on. Fuck, I'll have to edit this. I'm sorry.
No, you can clap so you know. But
Yeah, clap. 1, 2, 3. All right, Before Sunset, directed by Richard Linklater, starring Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. The IMDb synopsis says, 9 years after Jesse and Celine first met, they encounter each other again on the French leg of Jesse's book tour. Yeah,
Yes.
That's an astute synopsis.
Yep, it is. So why don't you go first? Because I think I went first last week talking about Before Sunrise.
Yes, you did.
So-
You had seen Before Sunrise and probably this one more than I, and I requested that you go first. This is my second time seeing both Before Sunrise and then now Before Sunset. So if you want to know more about what I think about the first movie, or Justin, go back and watch our last or listen to our last episode. Watch it on YouTube if you want. So Before Sunset, I would say I like this one quite a bit. This is the thing I was most excited for whenever this was brought up and voted on. You know, was I could not wait to watch Before Sunset again. I was excited for Before Sunrise, but I'm here for Before Sunset.
Come for the sunrise, stay for the sunset.
Exactly. I have not seen Before Midnight, so I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about that one. We'll see, next week. But right now, I would say that Before Sunset is just as good as I remembered it. I think it's great. I think it's a short, breezy, wonderful little movie. I don't know if I would feel it's as good if I had not seen Before Sunrise first. Like, for example, I think if you saw just this movie in a vacuum and you just had like their stories of that night many years ago, I don't know that it would work as well. Maybe it would. I don't know. But I have seen Before Sunrise, and as a sequel to Before Sunrise, I think that this movie is fascinating. We mentioned last week that Richard Linklater seems to have this obsession with time passing and the relationships and interpersonal relationships changing and evolving over time. And I think that the Before trilogy is a fascinating example of that, even having not seen the third one. Just the first two movies, this idea of rekindling a very brief fling 9 years later and then potentially trying to turn it into something serious is just really quite fascinating. Because, you could spend months with someone and not know them. You could spend years with someone and not know them. And the idea that there is a connection so strong that they can't ignore it, is really fascinating and really romantic. And I think in this movie is handled in a really realistic and beautiful way. They meet each other. They're both hesitant. They're both nervous. They're both scared. But they both know, right? This is an opportunity to explore something that has stayed with them for years. And I think it's just a wonderful little movie. I don't know if it's a romantic comedy per se, but it makes me laugh. It makes me reflect. So yeah, this movie's really, the whole 9 yards for me. I think it's great.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think this one is even better than the first one. I think if you go back and listen to last week's episode on Before Sunrise, you will hear me gush almost uncontrollably about that one because I do love it. I think it's great, and this one somehow is even better. And that's kind of how I've always felt about it, and revisiting them now so close together, I think just reinforces that. What I love about it, and there's obviously the 9 years thing where we actually have the actors 9 years later playing the same characters. And so we get that, realistic sense of time having passed. But what's also interesting about this one too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this movie more or less takes place in real time. Like he's got about an hour or so, hour 15 minutes before his plane is supposed to take off, or before he needs to be at the airport to catch his plane. Yeah. And this movie is an hour and 20 minutes long. I don't think we have any real breaks in time that I can think of.
No, I guess not. Yeah, it's pretty consistent the whole time.
Yeah, that's where we start. He's got about an hour and 15 minutes to get to the airport. And then, of course, we end the movie, with those great closing lines of, you're going to miss that plane. And Ethan Hawke just saying, I know. Right? Yeah. So we pretty much stay in real time, which I think is another layer of interesting time passage that Linklater is experimenting with in this one.
Yeah, and I actually think it makes it a stronger story. Like the first one is definitely not over real time. And as a result, I think the movie has some scenes, I think we mentioned during the movie, that feel a little bit contrived.
Yeah.
Like the palm reader scene, the poet scene, things like that. Nothing too egregious, like still really good and better than most screenwriting, but still a little contrived, right? And this one, you don't really have that. They walk, they talk, they move, they're making their way to a specific location and taking the most scenic route possible, because they don't want it to end. And that is fascinating because the whole time they're moving towards the end, right? They're moving towards where they need to part ways. And the longer they put it off, the less likely that parting is to ever happen.
Yeah, and
it's fascinating because like you're watching them not only like get nostalgic, but you're seeing them, and especially Ethan Hawke the whole time, having seen it a second time, you're really seeing him weigh the pros and cons the whole time. Like he knows he needs to go, but man, like he'll do anything to stay, and it's really fascinating just watching him slowly make these decisions one by one and make choices, that he knows are going to result in a certain way. It's like he probably always knew he was going to miss that plane, but I don't think he was ready to admit that to himself until he saw her dancing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or, if he was just like, I'm not going to catch the plane, like that's, I don't know, it's almost too committal, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's part of, it's the fun is like a movie viewer, right? Watching it is him saying, well, I can do this, and there's that sort of tension. And I think just for them too, that's, if they didn't have that inevitable I have to leave, that's part of their the tension, the romantic tension between them.
Oh sure, yeah, and it makes them have to make the most of the time, the ticking clock.
Yeah, but and that ticking clock, what I think works about this movie so well, and what is maybe the thing that elevates it most above Before Sunrise, is that ticking clock is so short, right? And Before Sunrise, we have the ticking clock of the next morning.
Right, dawn.
There's going to be a train, and that's, 8, 9, 10 hours. So we know, we're going to miss out on some stuff. We're going to skip over some periods of time. Well, like this one only being an hour away or an hour 15 minutes away, it's like we're there with them every second. And something about not pulling away, not missing any of their time together.
Yeah.
Is just that tension. There's so much tension in it, and there's so much, like, it's so fascinating to me to just stay with them and not like dissolve to a time later or whatever, you know. And it works so well that I wish that Before Sunrise had done less of that, because it makes me feel like, you know, we miss out on some stuff that I would like to see in Before Sunrise.
I'll be interested to see how Before Midnight goes, and if it has that same ticking clock kind of feel to it, because I think it's a great device, at least for the second one. You know, it may not work in the third one, depending on the story they want to portray. You know, listeners who've seen it will know, so they can all laugh at my assumptions. But I agree with you. I think the ticking clock element, and not leaving their side, seeing it all happen relatively in real time, not giving the audience any kind of break in this thing, you know, it also, I think it's great. I also wonder, like, what did it take to film that, you know, because it seems like they're filming in the golden hour the whole movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder how hard that was to orchestrate. Like, how many days did it take to film?
I think I was watching behind the scenes on the Criterion edition, and I think they said they shot it in 15 or 16 days.
That makes sense. I mean, I wonder how much of it. Yeah, I mean, I bet they could do that. That sounds reasonable. You know, it's a short movie.
Yeah, I mean, there are some scenes you could probably, you know, eke out at different times, like where they're inside. You know, you can kind of film that at any time. But a lot of it, they are outside. It is that golden hour time. They talked about that. It's like, well, we don't have a ton of time to actually film this thing, and we only have about 15 or 16 days to do it. But, you know, it is a lot of long takes, a lot of just like one shot tracking with them as they walk, you know, through the streets of Paris. And while that would ease things up in terms of you don't have a ton of coverage to get, you have Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy having to deliver, you know, 8, 9, 10-minute scenes all in one take. And in the fact that they do that and they pulled it off, and they do it in such a natural way, like their performances in this one are even better than Before Sunrise. Like, I just completely get sucked into them as two characters that feel completely realistic, as opposed to
they're two characters who have lived a little. Like, they're less idealized. They're more heartbroken, a little more weary, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating to see what time can do to people. You know, it can make them worse. It can make them better. And again, I think that's a huge theme that Richard Linklater loves to explore. You know, I mean, Ethan Hawke even has a speech at the end of Boyhood amounting to pretty much just that, you know? So I think this movie's so Linklater, I guess what I'm saying. And I think this is Linklater at his best, you know? Like, he's always got the same kind of tropes that you can kind of tell it's him when he's doing his little indie thing. You know, people are always really self-reflective and introspective, and they're always thinking about the, you know, big picture and life and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But in this movie, I feel like it's handled and maybe it's just the performances, you know, these two in together and their chemistry. But, you know, I think this movie handles it a little more gracefully than a lot of Linklater's other films, you know?
Well, that's the genius of the concept, right? Is that these two characters get together. And Before Sunrise, they're in a place they don't know. And this one, they have a very limited amount of time. Like, they don't have time to really go do anything other than, you know, maybe stop and get coffee. But, you know, all they have time to do is talk.
Right.
You know, so some of that discussion, some of the places they go, like, maybe don't feel as forced as they do in other films where people are doing a bunch of different stuff, but then, we're also going to talk so we can get in this like philosophical point. This one, they don't have much to do, and they get to a lot of the places pretty naturally. It's still, you know, impressive writing. I'm not trying to say it's easier to write in that stuff with this, but there's just less, you don't have to like shoehorn it into a conversation while they're doing something else or other plot stuff is going on.
Right.
But I do like the growth of the characters. I do like seeing, especially, I think Ethan Hawke's character.
I feel like he's changed a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay, so I mentioned this in the first one. You know, I mentioned how, you know, Ethan Hawke seems a little bit more cynical about life, right? And Julie Delpy seems a little bit more romantic about life. Did you feel that in this one?
So I think that Ethan Hawke is kind of in this balanced state of he has the cynicism in him, but I think he's accepted all of the things that he feels cynical about as part of life, you know, even to the point where it feels at times like before he's met up with Julie Delpy, he's pretty much resigned to his life and has accepted that, you know, what does he say? I feel like I'm running a nursery with a person I used to date.
Yeah.
Or with the person I'm dating or something. And
he's let all the magic kind of fade.
Yeah, there is a cynical quality to his view on his marriage, and maybe that's because it's not a great marriage. But I think that the Ethan Hawke from Before Sunrise would think that he's crazy for staying in that relationship, or would think that it sounds like the most depressing thing in the world. And I don't feel like he's that depressed about that. Yeah. Maybe about, you know, not ending up with Julie Delpy or, you know, showing up. Yeah.
Do you think that later, he would be as depressed if not for the what if of Julie Delpy, right? Like that person that we're all hung up on, you know, that like what could have been about it all? Do you think that could ever stop him from being happy? Do you think he would have been happy without that? Do you think he's such a romantic in the literal sense? You know, yeah, he's a cynic and she's more romantic about things like magic and fate and all that stuff, you know. But he's obviously a romantic, otherwise he wouldn't be so, you know, flirty and forward thinking and all about connection.
Yeah.
So do you think that his marriage was always doomed, or do you think that he just happened to marry someone who sucks?
Well, I think there's a really complex idea there, and that is, if you're holding on to all of these what ifs, you know, how invested in another relationship can you be?
Yeah, exactly.
Or, you know, I guess in this case, it's one giant what if as opposed to a bunch.
Sure.
But I don't see how, and this is a bit of my personal view, but I don't see how having that big of a what if hanging over your head, how you could even allow yourself to be completely happy in another relationship, or even like commit yourself fully. Yeah. What do you think?
No, I think that's absolutely correct. You know, I think, you know, as time goes on, I think people have the tendency to like look at, you know, the grass is always greener type thing. And he seems like that kind of guy to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You know, it's like, I wondered that watching this movie, like, is Ethan Hawke's character a good guy? Or is he just being really selfish right now? Like we get caught up in the romanticism because we saw their first meet and we've never met his wife. We only know what he has to say. But I'm wondering, you know, on paper is what he's doing in this movie a good thing or, you know, ultimately a bad thing? And I also can't wait to see next week, you know, and see kind of how they explore that very question.
Yeah, well, it's certainly gray, right? You know.
Yeah, I think so for sure.
Yeah, I don't know that what he's doing is right or wrong. I mean, I think it ultimately depends on, you know, whether or not it is a what if grass is always greener, or if there is something there. I mean, I think that just watching them, I feel a connection between them that feels special. So I'm inclined to say this is probably worth it if he truly feels the way he does about his relationship, and that's not clouded by this what if they had ended up together.
Yeah. But I mean, even if he did allow that what if to intervene, then it's still ultimately best that he end the marriage, I guess. Right?
Yeah. I mean,
so either way, it amounts to the same thing. I just, the moral question of Ethan Hawke's character was floating around for me this time when watching it, you know, which is just like, I don't know. You know, I don't know. Could be a dick.
Yeah, and I think Julie Delpy's character is, I don't know, she's really, I don't know, I guess she's kind of the opposite of him in that she's single and hasn't ended up with anybody. But like, I don't know. There's something. I guess I search for that like meaning in her or like finding something. Is it that Ethan Hawke is a guy and I'm a guy, that I easily see all of this stuff with Ethan Hawke, but her character is kind of mysterious to me as to what she's thinking. I was going to
say the same thing. Maybe that's just also, here another like man watching this movie, but like, yeah, I feel like she's the more mysterious one. She's the harder, like the tougher egg to crack.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
at least for a majority.
Then again,
of the movie.
I also feel like she does most of the responding, right? Ethan Hawke's the one that kind of unloads on her.
He does eventually. I did find myself thinking, watching through it, like the first half of this movie, I was thinking, is this Julie Delpy's movie? Because she is answering all the questions, talking about all of her life, way more than Ethan Hawke. But eventually the tables kind of turn and he gets his time. But she does, she does say a lot. But I think I felt a little like she was, like you said, like she's a tough egg to crack, at least until that moment in the end when they go up to the apartment and she finally starts singing the song.
Yeah, the song
and the waltz, and that, to me, that's kind of the like, oh well, you are kind of the same as him. You have had this building up inside. He wrote a book, you wrote a song.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess maybe that's it, right? Because from the very beginning, we as the audience know Ethan Hawke. We've seen the first movie. We have heard his book described. They talk about it in great detail. The French Woman. Did it really happen? Ooh, blushing, all that stuff. So we know kind of where he stands and how he's been romanticizing this night, right? Mm-hmm. You're right. I think up until she sings that song, she's kind of playing coy. It's like, does she remember the sex? Does she not remember the sex? Like,
yeah, there's some games.
Yeah, there's some games there, right? And she's trying to be coy, and I think that's why, at the end when she's like laying her soul bare in the way that she knows how, and he like witnesses that, I think that's when he can't say no. It's impossible for him to say no at that point, Yeah,
she's definitely playing some games, because even,
do you think she's trying to get him back to her apartment? Like, do you think this was her plan?
I don't know. I mean, there are some sort of, I don't want to say crafty things, maybe coy is the better word, but when they first leave the bookstore in the beginning of the movie, one of the first things that she asks him, she's like, okay, we've got to get it out of the way. Did you show up? And, she's very much like, I want to find out your answer before I give my answer.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, can I let myself off the hook? And if he's like, no, I didn't show up, she can be like, oh yeah, I mean, neither did I. Right. And then she doesn't have to worry about it. So there is these sort of like mental games and the pretending to not remember the sex. But I don't know. I never got the sense that she is trying to get him there, because I think maybe other than the very, very end, I think maybe the most emotionally impactful moment in the movie is whenever they're dropping her off at the apartment and she gives him that hug, and that hug feels
final,
very final to me.
Yeah.
That does feel like it's the end in her mind.
Sure. Well, I think she's waiting on him to make the move, but like, I guess what I mean is, do you feel like she was trying to toy with him in a way to where this would be the ultimate outcome, Because I kind of feel like at the end when she's dancing, she seems like confident in herself, right? And maybe she's just responding to everything and she's feeling good in the moment and she's happy. But it felt like to me, I think she understands the power she holds over him, right? I think she can feel that.
Yeah, I can certainly see that.
And I think he knows that she can feel it, right? That's part of their connection. Like, they are both just, even when they're not saying anything, the way they look at each other and the way Ethan Hawke follows her like a puppy, like, it's just there. They both know it. They feel it. It's there. Everyone in the train, the first movie, could feel it immediately, Yeah. And maybe that's just these two actors having such great chemistry, but I feel like they're both really aware of how important this meeting is, the whole movie. And she, I think, is thinking about it in playing games with him to a degree to drive him nuts. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think so.
Especially with the, pretending to forget the sex and all that stuff, like I don't know. I think she knows what she's doing.
Yeah. And maybe there's this moment where I think it's when they're on a trolley, I think, or they're in the back of the car and they're riding, and I think he's going off and kind of venting and, is really upset and talking about, I can't remember exactly what he's talking about, but he kind of looks away as he's getting overly emotional, and she reaches her hand out to him.
Yeah, he did that to her earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that moment, there's moments like that I feel like that she's almost giving in. I don't know if it's like her plan or that she's necessarily like thinking about anything long term, but because moments like that and moments like the hug feel so like spur of the moment.
Sure.
It makes me feel like that.
Well, I don't know if they feel spur of the moment so much as I think there's like an overwhelming urge, and each touch is really important, right? And they don't want to blow it, right? Because he does the same thing to her. He almost touches her at the beginning when she looks away, and then ultimately decides not to, and she does the same thing later. So I think they're both playing their own hand, but I think they both want to get to the same place, right? Like she's playing coy and not necessarily hard to get, but she's playing little games with him, and his thing is, intense connection, talk, explain my thoughts, and that's his method. And I think that's both how they work. It's what it seems like to me. But I think each almost touch, each time they want to, I think it's got to mean something, until they can finally full out, do what they want to do. Every little hug or brushing of the hand in public is gonna have a lot of fireworks going on. Yeah, and speaking of that, that moment whenever they say something, or maybe Julie Delpy says something of like, "Oh, are we just gonna like fuck here in the park again?" or something like that, and he's like, "Yeah," and he like grabs her and like pretends to take her to like the park bench. Oh yeah, and sit there. I'm like, watching that, I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't remember this, but the tension. Yeah. Like he just wanted to touch her so badly just then, Yeah. Just like the holding of hands, like the grabbing of like the shoulders and like the sitting on her lap, all that stuff it was just like kind of sloppy and lame, really, as far as like flirtation goes. But that's part of the cuteness about it, right? Is that it's almost like two little children flirting or something. It's just weird. It's I got weird vibes from that scene, but like in a cute way, I guess, if that makes sense. Yeah, I just got a lot of tension of like, oof, like they should they maybe shouldn't do this because he's married. Yeah. But I kind of want him to because it just But he's the one instigating it. She's the one just sort of being like, hey, yep, we shouldn't do that. Yeah, but I think that joke comes out in a you know, with intention. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. But I mean, do you have anything else about Before Sunset? Well, there's just this other moment that, we spend the whole movie of them talking. That's basically the whole thing. Uh-huh. And then we get to their apartment and there's that walk up the stairs where they finally just stop talking and they're walking up the stairs, and like, and that moment is so, there's so much tension and there's so much like unsaid, and I feel like you can almost hear their thoughts as they're walking up the stairs of, what's going to happen when we get up here? What's the expectation? Yeah. What is the other person expecting of me? Like, how am I going to play this? Yeah. I can't believe I'm here. Right. You can almost hear their thoughts going a million miles an hour as they're walking up. But I think that's this really impactful punctual point to punctuate that silence, mm-hmm. after spending an hour and 15 or 10 minutes of them talking. Yeah, no, I agree. That's probably the longest gap in the whole movie where Ethan Hawke isn't talking about something or her,
Yeah. And
Yeah, I think that's good. I remember as they were going up the stairs, he says something like small talk wise, like, I love these old staircases,
yeah, right as they're about to go up. And
Yeah,
it's
and then like
the
after
second
that, it's just sort of like, like feeling the other's presence, being hyper aware of everything.
It almost feels like they step onto a treadmill or an escalator or something, and it feels like this inevitable path that they're on of like, we're going up here, and there's no turning back now. We're here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is the moment,
This fateful stair climb, and for them to just
all this,
not
like
talk
all this
through
talking and Ethan Hawke delaying it, one step more, one little bit more, 15 minutes more, this has all been leading to this moment,
Mm-hmm. And I saw these two movies before midnight was a thing.
Yeah, same.
And had come out.
Mm-hmm.
You had too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I remember having a discussion with one of our film school buddies, but just with that in line of, you're going to miss that plane, I know. Do you feel like that's him resigning himself of like, we're going to do this, I'm going to stay, and we're going to not miss that chance again? Or, I mean, do you feel like they're going to end up together?
So that's always the implication I got.
Okay.
Right. I don't know what Before Midnight's about. So, I have no idea if they've been together the whole time or not, if they just meet again after breaking up shortly after this movie or whatever. But I always assumed at the end of Before Sunset that he was making a decision to enter into the relationship that never was kind of thing. That's kind of the lens that I have viewed this whole episode in, right? So every thought I've had has always been to like the assumption, like everything I've said prior to this moment has been with the assumption that that's where they were headed.
Yeah. I mean, I always did that too. And I think it's one of those things like the end of the first one kind of depends on who you are as a person. Are you a hopeless romantic? Are you, somewhat romantic? And Ethan Hawke talks about that at the beginning of this movie, doesn't he? When people ask about the end of the book.
Yep.
But we get that same sort of thing here. Although I think I tend to agree with you that it feels like, well, that's it. He's not letting the opportunity pass, and they're going to give it a go.
Right, because it seems like the ball's really in his court. It seems like she's game, but he's the one with the baggage, right, so to speak.
That's right.
So he's the one that has to like make the hard choice to make this work. And it feels like at the end of that movie with you're going to miss your plane, I know, it feels like he's making a very conscious decision to miss something that was pre-scheduled to go back to his life. And he is purposefully ignoring that for no other reason but to stay here with this woman. So I feel like the greater implications there, unless he's an idiot or just a dick, is that he's going to give this an honest go.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I do like this somewhat ambiguous quality to it, but it doesn't feel that ambiguous to me as a romantic sort of person.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think in terms of film endings, this is an all-timer for me. It's high up there. One of my favorite film endings.
You've seen Before Midnight, but do you think Before Midnight cheapens the end of this one?
No, I don't think so. Because this ending doesn't necessarily feel like a, and they lived happily ever after, or and they were doomed, or anything final like that, right? Like it just feels of the moment of, yep, I'm gonna miss this plane, and that holds true no matter what happens in Before Midnight.
Huh? Good, because that's always been my hesitation to watch Before Midnight.
To ruin the ending. I don't.
Yeah,
think
I liked Before Sunset so much that, like, I don't know, I didn't want to go in there and have like a canonized version of what actually happened,
Mm-hmm.
But it worked out for Before Sunset, and I love the cast. Richard Linklater seems to get it, so and it's got good reviews, and it seems to be well received. So next week's the time. I guess I'll find out.
Yeah, and for now, I guess unless you have anything else, we can end it and until next week.
Yeah, that's it. We don't have any listener questions because we are in the middle of a trilogy. So, stay tuned next week. We'll be putting out Before Midnight.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks everybody for listening. And of course, as always, thanks Jake Wagner Russell for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch. And actually, Jake Wagner Russell, big fan of these movies. I think I might have watched one of these with him. And we might have just gushed about how great it was.
Oh, what, Jake?
So shout out to him.
Yeah, Jake loves these movies, if I remember correctly. Although I don't know what he thinks of Before Midnight. I'd love to know. All right, and stopping.
All right, see you later.